Welcome to Glen Talks, where we cover all things in the world of business in the local community. We offer inclusive insights and exclusive experiences. Today's guest is a professional engineer, holding both a master's in public administration and business administration. He heads up a major department at the City of Burnaby and is going to share insights on how he's advancing projects in construction and managing to make a big impact on the industry and how projects are performed. James Lota has a wealth of experience coming from a number of different industries, and we look forward to hearing a little bit more about him and how he's integrating these projects. Thanks for joining us, James. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So can you share a little bit about you and your career path and what has led you to joining on with the City of Burnaby?
Sure. Yeah. I graduated with an engineering degree from UBC in the early 2000s, so 2001. Started off in the high-tech industry, working on electronic materials, cell phones. Actually, some of the first touchscreens for cell phones was in my portfolio.
Was it LG Chocolate was the first one, wasn't it?
The LG Chocolate was, and yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, very good memory. Yeah, that's absolutely.
I'll take random information for 100.
That's right. And so I was doing research and development there, and then got some experience moving manufacturing offshore to Asia and Eastern Europe. And then so I moved into supply chain. And then I started to get a passion in alternative energy, where I helped build factories in Eastern Europe and Asia to build PV solar panels. And then as my passion for alternative energy grew, there was an opportunity here locally with FortisBC. They were opening up their alternative energy division. And so I thought, one of the best ways to promote alternative energy is to go into a gas company and do that and try and grow it from within. And it was great experience. And then I started to get experience doing civil infrastructure like pipelines and all that. And then Burnaby's been home. I've born and raised, well, I wasn't born in Burnaby, but I moved to Burnaby when I was 2 years old. So pretty much my whole life, over 40 years, I've lived in Burnaby. And an opportunity opened up with the City of Burnaby in their engineering department to build up their capital facilities. And I found my way into local government. That was back in 2015 now, so almost 10 years. And moved on to head up the engineering department. And now they created a new lands and facilities department to look after all the city's real estate and construction of its major facilities, including a district energy system. And so now I'm looking after that department. So
awesome. Time sure flies, hey? 2015 is almost 10 years ago.
It unreal. Does,
yeah. So it doesn't really need to be said, but what kind of made you decide to pivot from private sector work in oil and gas into joining in with the municipality? It's a bit of a different taste.
It is. It's definitely a different taste. And it was a great experience working in the oil and gas private sector. It's quick, it's fast moving. Like I said, I'm a Burnaby boy. And so being able to have that impact in your community, where your kids' schools and the rec centers you go to, it's quite rewarding. It's also, it keeps me at home more. I don't do as much traveling, so right. I'm home at more for family and all that stuff. But being able to have that impact, that direct impact on your family and your daily lives, it's super rewarding. Yeah. Plus the commute is fantastic because I live in Burnaby and I work in Burnaby, so there's that as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So you've got a broad background in construction then. How have you been able to, is there anything that's been formative from your past experience that's kind of brought into this current role, and what's kind of pushed and propelled how you do projects?
Mm-hmm. So I started my career in manufacturing, and at a time where Lean Six Sigma was all the craze. It was about, getting things more efficient and reducing waste and being more competitive. And I've carried that to, so when I was at 3M and Kodak, that's where I started my career. I got trained up as a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I brought that training with me right through the utility business and now the local government business, where I'm trying to bring those that lean thinking into everything we do in government. And now you can see so that Lean Six Sigma concept started in manufacturing, and it's starting to make its way now into service industries like health and banking, and now local government and construction now, where you start to see things like IPD, integrated project delivery, and the alliance model, where it was adopted. It's been adopted back east in Eastern Canada and around the world as a lean way to do construction. And in Western Canada now it's starting to pick up. And so I've been able to bring that training with me into construction of civic facilities. So
Awesome. And so from what I understand, it's a far more collaborative approach, and it also gives you an opportunity to trim some of that fat and get rid of some of those processes that may be a little bit more antiquated with the access of technology and our ability to communicate so much more freely these days. Can you share a little bit more about the integrated project delivery process, or what the components are of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you pretty much nailed it in your summary there. It is just a much more collaborative way of doing projects. So traditionally in design build projects, and this is the way Burnaby had delivered all its projects previous to, just 2 or 3 years ago, we started adopting these more collaborative models. So before 2 or 3 years ago, Burnaby had only ever delivered projects using the traditional design bid build model, where you hire an architect, they design it, you take that design, you put it out to the market, you typically award it to the low bidder, and then you have a contract, and you just basically tell your GC to build what the architect designed. And if there were oversights or poor designs or unknown conditions, you would just fight over what those extra costs were. In a design bid build model, in an IPD model, the owner, the architect, and the GC are all they form a multi-party agreement. So all three of them enter into a contract together, and you start to cooperate and design the project right from the start all together. So the GC is in right from day one, giving insight and suggestions on how to design it better, more efficiently, for better constructability. And so, and then right through the process, as construction goes on, and say, some unknown condition comes up, the architect is still on the team to, redesign or make design changes. And so, and the other thing is pricing. So you don't typically award to the low bidder. There's a target price, and within that target price, there's a profit pool. And so, to the extent that the project can come in under budget, all three parties share in those savings. And if the project goes over budget, then the parties agree that the owner will just pay a cost but no profit. And so from that perspective, it incents everyone to keep it on budget or below, because their profit margins go up if you do that. And plus, since all the parties are at the table and they're actually working together, the contract actually incentivizes all the parties to find the most efficient, lean solution. That's exactly what happens versus a very siloed design bid build approach, where everyone is just self-interested in trying to maximize their portion of the pie. Mm-hmm. The IPD project actually recognized that the parties don't have to fight for a bigger piece of the pie. They can actually together make the pie bigger. So,
and I would imagine then that would prevent strategic and specific underbidding of projects then, and have a more robust approach that people are putting their actual numbers and sharpening their pencils the right way before they submit. Yeah,
absolutely. That's right.
Now speaking a little bit to that process, and I think with your background, is there anything specific that you would be interested in technology kind of taking a more front seat approach to some of these projects?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. We're piloting a number of different technologies around construction, making it not only more efficient, but also, more environmentally responsible, and taking real-time tracking of regulatory issues. So, as an example, we do real-time tracking now of our construction water quality. So, whenever there's a water that goes off site, we have an automated system that tracks the quality of the water as it goes off.
Oh,
site.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're doing that, and it's been great, because it actually it has the capability of telling you before you have a problem, so that you can take proactive measures to make sure that any water going off site is, not harmful to fish and streams and
the temptation to wash out cement trucks and stuff like that,
exactly,
where they're not supposed to be. And
exactly. And then the other thing we're doing now is we're piloting a construction site activities camera. So it's a time-lapse camera. Mm-hmm. That counts the number of people and machines and, like dump trucks and crane. It uses AI to estimate how much productivity happened on site. And so what that allows the owner and the GC and the architect to do is monitor to make sure that, all the trades that come on have come on at the right time, that and that productivity is following the expected path. It also has capability of tracking safety regulations. So it can track to see if people are wearing their hard hats or safety vests. And so it helps us do that. We're also trying to see if it can help us. We have one construction project right adjacent to a heron rookery. And it's quite sensitive. And so we're working with this company. It's called Timescapes, to see if it can track if herons fly away, and then so we can report that to the Ministry of Environment to see if the construction noise is too much for the herons and all that stuff.
Oh, phenomenal!
Yeah, so there's pretty cool stuff out there, especially in the AI world.
Yeah. Have you guys have you looked into doing anything of the augmented reality or anything like that for taking like specific blueprints of projects and being able to see where you're at and where it's supposed to be? Is that something you guys are looking at as well?
Totally, yeah. That BIM modeling, but taking it right down to the construction level too, so you can do virtual walkarounds with like
Matterport cameras and stuff.
No, all of these things. It's just that totally like
such an exciting time that we're in, isn't it?
It is.
Can you share a little bit about the process then, shifting from a traditional procurement model, then switching to the IPD?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess it really starts with a procurement process. So instead of, a design bid build where you go out with an architect first and they take a year to do a design and then you bid that out, you really start with nothing. And then you go out to the market and say, I want to build a fire hall. And then and you ask them to, so there's different ways of doing it, but the way Burnaby does it is we ask people to assemble a team of including a GC, an architect, maybe an engineer, if that's required, if that's going to be a big part of the project. And you go to the teams and then you basically interview them, just like a job interview, and you ask them what their experience is working together, what they've done, track record, and you pick this team more on experience and fit for your own team than you would on price. And then price is still obviously an important part of it, but it's less so in an IPD model. And then the first stage is you get to validation, where the team you work with comes to a target price and a design. And then the owner at that point has the option to continue with the project or to not. And at that point, if the owner elects to continue with the project, then that's where the target price is set and the scope and schedule are done. And then now it continues on like any other project. You start construction and you track progress from there.
Awesome. So can you, maybe not referencing specific projects, but can you maybe make a reference point from recent project or any projects that you've had in the past that have been under the more traditional model versus a project that you have ongoing under this IPD model?
Mm-hmm. Actually, so a good example is a fire hall we just built. So we just finished our fire hall on Burnaby Mountain under the IPD project. From start to finish, it was 18 months and came in under budget. The fire hall we built previous to that, and that was it was quite recent. It was about 5 years ago. Very same specifications, like almost exactly the same size and specs. So this last one took us 18 months. The one previous took us almost 3 years, and it was it finished a little bit over budget, actually. So this one was almost half the time under budget versus the traditional one, which was almost 3 years and over budget.
Wow, those are some significant numbers in a shorter period of time. Are there any best practices or lessons learned then from this project so far, and how you're going to adapt and shift for future projects?
Mm-hmm. IPD is great as it is, and it's lean thinking it totally interests me from the lean point of view. It's probably not a tool you can use on every project. It's something you should adapt. You should also look at your team, because this collaborative model, it takes quite a different kind of person to make sure that they're the right fit. I know I was talking to Fraser Health, and they're doing an alliance model for their expansion of the Burnaby Hospital. And they actually put their project managers through a psychological evaluation to make sure that they picked the right project manager who had a collaborative mindset and was willing to be creative with their problem solving, to make sure that project manager was on the project. So it's going to take some culture change, especially in the industry we're in here in Western Canada. But yeah, we just have to pick and choose the right tool from the toolbox.
Awesome. So with that success so far, then I would imagine, it's impressed and turned a few heads. So has your workload increased a little bit as a result, or has Burnaby adjusted how they plan and what their guideposts are for success?
It has, and so success breeds success. And so now that we've delivered one of our fire halls in half the time that we did any previous ones, now mayor and council are expecting that it'll, accelerate the other projects as well. And so there is now, we have established an expectation that these projects will come out faster and faster, and on budget more. So it has established an expectation now. So yes, there is a bit of a workload increase that comes with it, for sure.
Awesome. So there's an exciting project that's going to be coming up, the District Energy Utility Project. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that project and what the goals are of it? For
sure. Yeah. So Burnaby is one of the many municipalities in Metro Vancouver that have signed on to the climate emergency. So we're looking to be carbon neutral in Burnaby's operations by 2040 and carbon neutral in the community by 2050. This district energy project is the biggest step in that direction. So we're forecasting 30,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions a year, like reductions. And it's what we're looking to do is we're looking to make use of the incinerator that's in Burnaby. It's a waste to energy facility operated by Metro Vancouver. Processes about 25% of the region's solid waste right now. It's been in operation since the 80s, so it's been in operation for a long time. And right now, the heat generated from that process, a small portion of it is captured to create electricity, but the vast majority of it is just wasted. And so what we want to do is we want to capture that waste heat hot water, and use it to heat the buildings and businesses in Burnaby to offset natural gas use.
And this has gotten some international attention from what I understand as well. Can you share a little bit about the research project leading up to this and who's jumped on board and interested in the results?
It has, yeah. And to my surprise, it captured the attention of some researchers in Sweden. So I got a call from some researchers, from a researcher in Lund University in Sweden. She was doing a research paper on the social aspects of sustainability from these district energy systems. So she got in contact with me. And so we had some researchers from Sweden come over to visit us, and we had a little bit of a conference here to talk about their experience in especially in Northern Europe, where district energy systems are quite the norm. And so we had a bit of sharing to learn from them, and they learned a little bit from us too. So it's great.
Amazing, as long as they didn't bring that can of their Swedish fish that we've all seen so much.
That's right.
How specifically is it able to convert some of that energy? And are there other specific means aside from using the incinerator that's being looked at in terms of helping to reduce?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, your typical boiler in your house, all it really does is it burns gas to heat water, to heat your domestic hot water and your spaces. And so all we're doing is replacing that natural gas boiler with heat from the waste energy facility. So we're going to pipe hot water through the streets to replace that gas boiler. And so it's pretty simple technology. You're just piping hot water around the city. And we are looking at other ways to do it. So this incinerator happens to be a very good industrial waste heat source. It's very high temperature, so it's a very efficient way to do it. But we are investigating other ways of producing this heat, like sewer waste heat recovery. So there's a lot of heat in the sanitary sewer, which you can recover and use to heat your spaces. We're also looking at that. Geothermal is another thing. Hydrogen. There's a bunch of we have a bit of a hydrogen hub in Burnaby, with companies that are in the hydrogen research, and we're looking at incorporating that stuff too. We're also working with SFU. So the City of Burnaby has created a partnership with Simon Fraser University called Civic Innovation Lab, where researchers from SFU use Burnaby as a living lab space to test out some of their research and their trinkets. And so we're working with them on using the heat to create cooling through a absorption heat transformers is what the technology is called. And so you can use the waste heat to create air conditioning for spaces. So again, you can not only does it reduce the use of natural gas for heating, but it could also reduce the reliance on electricity. So it reduces the stress on the grid. So there's more electricity for electric vehicles and to run your TVs, to do other things that electricity is probably better suited to do rather than running a heat pump for air conditioning.
Does this tie at all into does some of this project can apply and be tailored into the BC Hydro's call for power at all? Or
So we are talking to BC Hydro about that. It's the BC Hydro's call to power has a limit, a very high limit for electricity generation. It's 50 megawatts, so that's quite a high bar to reach. So our system in Burnaby will use up to 66 megawatts, but for heat. And so not necessarily for electricity, but we are working with BC Hydro on partnering on doing some stuff, which I just mentioned, like so ways that this heating technology can be used to reduce the stress on the electric grid. So for example, new high-rise towers that go up, if you wanted to heat that building with heat pumps and have an electric vehicle charging station on for every vehicle, that's a huge stress on the electric grid. But if you can reduce the heating load on the building with zero carbon energy, which the district energy system is, you could then have a lot of that electricity used for the electric vehicles without having to use up that capacity to heat the building and the hot water for the building.
Awesome. So how far are you guys into that project? What stage are you at? And what are you looking for the future of this project?
Oh, we're just on the cusp. We're just on the 11th hour of getting going and getting shovels in the ground. It's in partnership with Metro Vancouver, and we're both Metro Vancouver and Burnaby are expecting to start construction next year.
Oh, that's exciting. Mm-hmm. So would you consider this to be one of the bigger projects and highlights of your career? Or is
Absolutely, without a doubt, this will be one of the highlights of my career, just from because it hits all the buttons. Like it's affordable energy because it's essentially free energy that we're wasting now. Sustainability, we're going to reduce carbon emissions by 30,000 tons a year, and the energy security of it all. Reducing the reliance on outside sources of energy like BC Hydro and FortisBC. This is people will be writing white papers about this forever because it's such this mix of having a very high grade heat source very close to a high densely populated area. That's it's a silver bullet. There's very few examples where that occurs, and so we'd be wise to take advantage of it. So.
Well, that's amazing. So also with it being a groundbreaking project, and then also with having the IDP model developed under there, are there other municipalities that are kind of looking to you guys for some guidance in terms of how they can get their projects off the ground in the same fashion?
Mm-hmm. So I've had a few phone calls from other local governments now asking us for our the templates for our IPD contracts and our procurement documents. So for sure, everyone's taken notice that this is a good way to get their projects off the ground. And they've been asking me for some advice on which projects is it best suited for, what kinds of folks should you look to recruit to make sure that you have the best chances of success on your IPD projects. So. Yeah.
Awesome. So now kind of touching into some other sides of development, we've had, a lot of focus, particularly in different electoral districts and with elections on affordable housing. And I know City of Burnaby is also turning into a bit of a leader in this regard as well. So can you share a little bit of an update on those projects and also in particular to these projects and helping to get more affordable housing on the market? Also, the goal of helping to reduce a lot of the bureaucratic red tape and being able to get these projects from start to finish in a quicker fashion so that we can meet the needs.
Mm-hmm. No, and so Burnaby has been quite active in this area. It's been the highest priority for mayor and council since the mayor took office, 6 years ago, was affordable housing. And so the first things that we put into place was, again, taking some of this lean Six Sigma thinking on our approval process. And so our planning and development department started to initiate what they called the DAP process, the development approval process, where it was exactly that, just trying to cut the red tape and bureaucracy out of all the approvals that we give for real estate developers. And so they just launched, and so they're in phase 2 now of that, and we've had very, very good results coming from that. And I think we actually even won an award from NAIOP on our most improved development process. And then just earlier this year, we launched the Burnaby Housing Authority, where it's an arm's length municipally owned corporation whose sole mandate is to accelerate the delivery of affordable housing in Burnaby. And this is on the laurels of again, our planning and development department having one of the most progressive inclusionary housing standards and bylaws for development for rental housing and below market rental housing. And the Burnaby Housing Authority is now just the next step in that evolution of now we're actually going to get into the business of becoming developers ourselves, but with the mandate of accelerating the delivery of housing on all the lands that Burnaby currently owns.
That's phenomenal. How much land does Burnaby own in the city of Burnaby?
So Burnaby owns quite a bit of land. We own probably 25 to 30% of all the land in Burnaby. Now, a lot of that is parkland, but a lot of it is developable land. And so we've been acquiring this land over last few decades. And now mayor and council want to use that for the community to make sure that we use that land to create affordable housing and frankly, they use it as an asset to create value to reduce tax rate pressures and whatnot. So.
Awesome. So without disclosing any unknown new campaign platforms or anything like that, are there any other projects that are kind of in their infancy of development and ideas that you might be able to share about that might be cool coming down the pipe?
I mean, there were, and now this team, after this lands and facilities group got put together, they've all been launched. So this lands and facilities group was launched 2 years ago to make sure that these long promised facilities are under construction. So we've got the new Burnaby Lake Aquatics Arena, which is a 50-meter pool, 25-meter pool, lazy river, and an ice rink under construction. We've got a new Cameron Rec Center under construction, a new James Cowan Theater, a few daycares, fire halls. So it's all these projects that were just waiting. They were in development phase for it seemed like forever. And now we've used stuff like this IPD model to push them over the finish line. And so now the next, 2 to 5 years is all going to be focused on delivery and construction. So the big platform, I guess, now is get it done. So. Yeah.
So you must be one of the mayor's favorite people because you help make them look real good.
we'll see if it actually gets done.
At what point in your career path did you start kind of changing your mindset and start moving towards the MBA, MPA, and thinking that, a career in public service might be for you?
Oh, that's a good question. So I started my career in research and development. And what I quickly saw was that a lot of most of the decisions had nothing really to do with the technical side, the engineering of it. And so that's when I really got interested in the MBA side because, especially in the high tech sector, it's all about the money, and I understood it very little. And so I had this urge to understand why certain decisions were made, and that's what really drove me to the MBA. And that was the best career decision I had ever made, was to open up that side of my brain to look at, the economic side and the social sustainability and everything, but, that complements the engineering side. And then when I started in the public sector, my boss, who's still my boss, the CAO of Burnaby, Leon Hos, we were talking and we got to be good friends. And so he supported me going back to school, actually. And because Burnaby was my first public sector job. And he said, if there's any professional development that he could recommend, it's to just get more experience in the public sector. And so UVic has a Master's of Public Administration, which is basically an MBA, but for government public sector workers. And that was also like eye-opening, why government does things the way they do. They're not just motivated by profit, but by, social capital as well. So those two degrees that I did after my engineering degree was probably the best things I've done for my career. So.
Awesome. So in terms of your passion and how you're able to lend assistance to your city, are there any other passions or anything like that you like, where your North Star is kind of sitting at, something that you would really like to achieve before the end of your career?
Oh, wow. I mean, what I've been seeing and what's surprised me actually is how much influence local governments have on people's daily lives. And so so now I'm on this, I've been on this stint to find more ways to benefit my community. So now I sit on the board of the Burnaby Hospital Foundation, and I'm finding that so rewarding. I'm learning stuff about the healthcare industry and Fraser Health versus Vancouver Coastal Health and all these things where you don't get any insight into it unless you're in it. And so, just finding ways that I can, help the public sector, not just in Burnaby, but in Metro Vancouver and Canada for that, and BC and Canada for that matter, finding ways that I can use my skills on this, just basically the way to get things done, IPD and lean and making things, cut the bureaucracy out of it with the STAP process, things like that. There's so many opportunities through government that I see, like the manufacturing industry, like they have it down to a science. And if I can just bring that thinking through more areas of the government, that's really where my passion lies now.
Absolutely, because then you can redirect a lot of those funds to social programs and things that'll really help develop and build the community a little bit more instead.
Exactly, yeah.
So a lot of people feel that there's no point in voting in elections and getting involved or taking any interest in their local municipal politics. Sitting in some of the council sessions and that myself, it's quite an empty room. How do you beat that apathy with the residents?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. It's something that I've been trying to find ways to. And when I mentioned before that I take the opportunity to promote public sector careers to young people, I think that's one of the ways I can do it. Because, when I started at City of Burnaby, the average age of staff was probably 55 or 60 years old. And because that's typically the kind of people that they attracted. You get hired when you were 20, you just stay in the job for 40 years. Now you see more and more young people coming in. You see younger and younger politicians. I'm hoping that it's becoming cooler to be in politics, but it's that kind of apathy that we have to combat. Just the provincial election yesterday, you saw some of the ridings were decided by 28 votes, right? Everyone's vote actually counts, right? And so, but also the realization that government, especially local government, it has a very direct impact on your day-to-day life. And so, and a career in the public sector, becoming a public servant is a very real and tangible way to affect the lives of not only yourself and your own family, but, your community around you. So, yeah.
So you got any kids and family?
I do. I've got 4 kids. They all live in Burnaby, and I've got a 16-year-old daughter, 13-year-old son, and then twin 10-year-old girls. And so they keep me busy outside of work, and that's the thing. The schools they go to, the playgrounds they play at, the rec centers. When you go into a gym and then you see all the stuff that's wrong with it, and then you're so it just brings everything to life, right? So you're sitting in a basketball game. It's not just a basketball game anymore. It's also how do I make this building better? The parents are uncomfortable. What can I do to make them more comfortable?
Ergonomic seating.
More ergonomic seating, exactly. Things like that. And so it just adds that extra bit of spice to everything I'm doing with the rest of my life. So,
so we're moving into a bit of a rapid fire section for the next phase, and it's just a bunch of 1 word to 1 sentence answers, just for us to kind of get to know you a little bit better, and sometimes you might even be just as surprised as us at what your answer might be.
Okay.
So far in your career, which project are you the most proud of?
Completed or in progress?
Completed.
A district energy system that I built for FortisBC in Burnaby, actually, the solo district energy system. Yeah.
Awesome. So you're not playing any favorites to any municipality?
No, not at all.
Most valuable career advice you've received so far?
Find a way, be creative, and get it done. So,
I'm gonna have to cut this. Boop, 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 boop. We'll get into a fun part. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Mountains or ocean?
Mountains.
Favorite Burnaby park?
Central.
Best part about your job?
The variety.
Hidden talent people might not know you have?
I teach Kung Fu.
And if you could change any policy overnight, what would it be?
Oh, geez, that's a good one. If I could change any policy overnight, what would it be? It would be, I'm a cyclist. I cycle to work, and I wish we could just close a lane for cyclists.
There's quite a lot of good bike lanes in Burnaby, so I don't think that would be too much to ask.
Too much to ask, no.
No. Before we close, is there any final thoughts or any other words that you'd like to share?
No, just that my time in Burnaby has been great. The public service. When I started my career, I never thought I never saw myself in the public sector, but it's been fantastic, and I encourage anyone who's considering a career in the public sector to consider it hard.
Awesome. So would there be any advice that you would have for up-and-coming engineers and how to kind of shift and consider a role in municipal sector?
Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of events that are coming and come out and talk to us. But like I said, when I was in university, that was never really a sector that anyone pushed really hard, and I just kind of fell into it. And so that's why I'm doing every chance I get, I try and promote it whenever I can. So.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much it for us, but I really, really like to thank you so much for joining us today. And I have a wonderful gift here.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
It's not necessarily the most for brain power, but it might be good for energy. So we've got quite a bit of sugar and everything there. But
thank you very much. Very generous.
And I don't know if you're into tea, but there's a wonderful little tea tumbler in there with a personalized laser engraved things so that you won't be able to lose it. So
perfect.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So that's all we have for today's show. Thanks again for joining us. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.